Okay, folks, it's Tacky Talk time once again. State Representative Tacky Chanaquincy is joining us for our December 6th update. Hey, Tacky.
Hey, happy December, everyone. Good to see you again, Joe, and the first kind of sprinkly snowfall of the year.
Yes, I've heard it called festive flakes, conversational snow. To me, it's just a big pain in the nuisance.
Well, first snow of the season. We're actually not snow of the year, but first snow of the season.
Yeah,
Little
exactly.
little drizzle here and there, but nothing severe yet. And we're expecting more warm weather again to play havoc with some of us who like a steady temperature.
Yeah, I mean, so far, Governor Healy is getting a pass on from the weather world at least. I remember how Governor Baker was first initiated with the snow Mageddon.
Oh yes, and Deval Patrick did not call a state of emergency the first time he did that, and wondered how come it took 2 hours to get from Boston to Milton. Executive branch folks, doesn't matter what level of government you're in. If you're newly elected executive branch, the first snowfall is always the shock and awe moment where some reason after living in New England your entire life, or most of your life, you can't figure out that first snowfall is awful because we
Right.
all
Yeah.
live in bad first snowfall. And I was shocked by newly electeds like, oh, new elected executive branch folks are like, what just happened? I'm like, don't you live here?
Although I recently met the new director of MEMA, Mass Emergency Management Agency, and she used to work in Anchorage, Alaska. So I think we're in good hands.
I think we have somebody who's ready for Snowmageddon Part 2. God forbid that happens. But
Exactly.
I could see that. I could see we're better prepared this time for winters.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
MEMA is
yeah.
an important agency. Since we're on the subject, I mean, MEMA is such an important agency to us because, people know what FEMA is, but people forget we have MEMA. And, they're basically not just necessarily for like snow emergencies or tropical storms, but I mean, they're emergency management coordinator. They do logistics. So, like when we did the Boston bombing, that whole tragedy, which is, wow, it's gonna be like 15 years next year, I think. Is it? No?
2013. So it was
Yeah,
just
10
10
years,
years this year.
10 years this year. So yeah, you can tell dates in my head are not working anymore. But yeah, MEMA was part of the coordination effort regarding the public safety components of that in terms of, all the logistics of moving everybody around on top of the, obviously law enforcement moving everybody around that crazy week in April that year. So, MEMA was actually a pretty important agency, and we saw that in COVID. I mean,
Hmm.
they were not they were charged with moving logistics of supplies around, and they're also in charge of logistics of morgues. So it's a pretty important agency. People will see it as just kind of a storm agency. It's really not. It does a lot more than that.
Yeah, no, as Don Brantley, the director, explained to me, the two functions that they deal with on a daily basis. One is man-made emergencies, a chemical spill, God forbid, or a plane crash, God forbid, and then natural disasters.
Hmm. Yeah, and a part of the larger health and public safety networks, right? We live
Right.
ever since 9/11, been living in potential chemical type related situations. I mean, anthrax is still not gone. I think people forget that it's still a popular domestic now, more like domestic terror than anything else. Um, and yeah, you're right. There's a chemical spill or a lab leak. They're in charge of dealing with that.
Right. So, Techie, since last we talked, the supplemental budget has been approved. How did that happen?
Well, it depends. You want how much procedural weeds do you want me to get into? So,
I want to know how the speaker got 100 members to get to the State House on Monday.
well, yeah, okay, folks. I've heard you say over and over again how informal sessions are any one person can object to the session, and I think we never really described what the objection looks like. So when you're informal session, there's no formal session where you can take roll call votes, and to hold a formal session requires a majority of members. Informal session is basically the chair rules in many ways, not always, and the minority party is always present. It's kind of one of those gentlemen understandings that the minority party is always present in informal sessions. And the way you end an informal session is question the presence of a quorum. And since informal sessions are very lately attended, questioning a quorum isn't that difficult. So the Republican Party asked for quorums on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I was actually in the chamber on Thursday evening, and they went through the procedural showing of them trying to demonstrate the ability to try to leverage the chamber. So they did some, what not surprising, and it just kind of makes statement kind of a procedure. So, for example, the minority leader put down an order petition, a petition down under Joint Rule, House Rule 44, to ask the House come back into formal session, but you need a petition of 81 members. There's not 81 Republicans, so that wasn't going to happen. But it was a nice show that went to the House Committee on Rules, and it's never coming out because it's not rules. The petition is not in order of the rule. So, I mean, you don't have 81 people in a petition, and you can't call formal session. There was questions about whether I can have a roll call. We can call each member's name up during informal session. The answer is no. The rules do not allow for roll call. So the only recourse left was really to do a quorum call, and they did that on Thursday. And of course, leadership had conversations with the minority party to try to figure out if they could work something out. Nothing happened. Then Friday, then Saturday, and then it come to Monday. And at this stage, all the membership knows there's a problem. I mean, as you all know, it's not just a migrant shelter money, but there's also a whole lot of prior appropriation continues for various agencies, as well as the state collective bargaining contracts for state employees, but there's also county and judicial employees as part of that collective bargaining too. So it's like 100,000 employees in the state as part of that collective bargaining funding. So the entire legislature is acutely aware of the situation. So we all were keeping an eye on it. And it became a buddy system situation. If you're available, would you mind just coming in? And if you have a friend you could bring with you, wouldn't hurt. So there was no direct order saying you have to be there. That was, I think that's kind of incorrectly portrayed by the media. It was more of a if you're available situation. And people may not realize that the session schedule is how a lot of us plan our lives around the session schedule. The rules dictate our free time. So some members are probably on family vacation now in both branches, or they've already created other familial obligations, maybe out of state. So, it isn't like you can plan a vacation during the midst of a formal session period because you don't know what the schedule is going to be. You can't go anywhere for long lengths. So as a result, given the way the schedule is set up, people work around that, and our families have to work around the legislative scheduling. And this time period is expectation you can get some of these holiday and family things done, and it became more of a soft ask of if you happen to be around. And one of us calls someone, you call someone, that was text chain or call chain, or you want to describe it. We reached a majority of members with 105. We only need 81 to reach a quorum, and the Democratic caucus most definitely got to 81 on their own. So once on Monday we got to a quorum, and the Paul Frost, the minority whip, asked for, or was a minority leader. We don't call them whips anymore. Second leader, I think is what we call them. Asked for a quorum. The quorum was achieved, so the session could continue in formal session, and then. Sure. And they did a voice vote for accepting the conference committee report. And of course, we all said yay, they said nay, and generally the louder voice wins, but they questioned the ear of the chair. So they dealt the vote. So the question whether the chair heard a louder volume from one side or the other. And since we can't do a roll call vote, we went to what's called a standing vote. It's another aggregate vote where there's no name attached to your vote. Although the Boston Globe apparently took a lot of pictures as they try to figure out who was where. That's what I heard.
Interesting.
Yeah, you're not allowed to take pictures in the chamber, but apparently not everyone listens. So there was some they had to have taken some photographs from the gallery. There's no way they could have done that in like on an eye spot moment in the Globe to figure out who was there and who wasn't. Assuming, of course, they know who is who. And there's so many of us sometimes, there's so many new people. So they did a standing vote. So, people stood at their chairs, at their desk. If you vote yes, you stand with the yes vote. When that vote's done, you sit down, and people who vote no, they stand up. And each floor leader in charge of each division counts the segment of the chamber. So there's 4 sections. 1 is 60 divided by 4 is 40. You have one person that's in charge of each of the sections, in charge of counting the vote, and you record those votes. So, the we achieved a vote of, I believe, 101. I don't remember anymore. Right now. As a result, we were able to pass it on what we refer to as a standing vote. I'm trying to remember the number right now. But yeah, that's how we got there. And that's it. So yeah, 105 to 14 and a standing vote. So that means we achieved like 129 for a quorum out of 161 people. Obviously Democrats, again, got the quorum to ensure that the session could continue. The Republicans have made their statement and their little parliamentary power play, I suppose you could call it that if you want. And that was it. They were done being an obstacle for the remainder of the day. The Senate got the same issue. They actually did something procedurally a little bit different. The minority party did not question a quorum, although the Senate can work remote, folks. They can phone it in. We have to show up in person in the House. So people from all over the state came to the chamber for a quick morning. The Senate, they can actually do remote. They actually also achieved the quorum. You only need 21 out of the 40. And as opposed to the Senate minority party putting a petition into form a formal session in the Senate, instead they, under the joint rules, the temporary joint rules, they've set a petition under joint rules to open a formal session and suppose to send a petition for the House for a vote, which I've been informed by my staff has never made it to the House Clerk's office. So again, weird parliamentary showmanship that, quite frankly, you don't care about. The most of the public doesn't care about this weird parliamentary.
I agree with that. That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. Most people don't care about this weird parliamentary rules. Us nerds in the building that need to know the rules and understand what's going on. And as a result, the Senate, a minority party, did not do things like lay things on the table, which can push things automatically to the next calendar day. The minority party, did their own statements to create some appearance of objections. And like the House, the Senate passed the bill also on a standing vote by 20 to 3. So, 21 members need to be quorumed, 23 members show up. So, and that's pretty much sums it up. The rest of it was passing papers back and forth, by unanimous consent of the branches. The governor signed it on Monday evening. And that's kind of procedurally what the parliamentary and gamesmanship and inside baseball / rule nerds like me observed. And you guys all know I've been watching this building a very long time in different capacities, and this is the first time I've seen this happen.
Really?
People under some false impression that informal sessions prohibits members from coming. It does not. It's just very rare you see a level that's the size of a quorum.
Yeah.
If you're around the building, at the close of informal sessions, end of a session year in the second half, so next year in 2024 in December, you see a lot of members milling around the building trying to get unanimous consent on their home rule petitions, or things have just made it to the last leg of the journey on some smaller bills they have a personal interest in. That's good, but doesn't mean it has massive impact on every person. And they're milling around, and you can have up to 30, 40, 50 members rolling around the building at different times during Christmas and New Year in 2024, depending on the circumstances.
Mhm.
And members trying to find leadership and the clerk and legal counsel and all this stuff, and people running around trying to move their small bills out.
I know that initially it was 2.8 billion. I think the final number was 3.1 billion. Though, do you know what the final tally was?
The final tally is 3.1 billion, according to State News Service.
Okay.
And there's some prior appropriation continues. There's some money that's been pushed around here and there. Most of the stuff is actually all of it's one-time funding.
Right. Very small portion, like 250 million for the shelter situation, right?
Yeah, again, it's a reconciliation.
Okay, yeah.
Budget's a reconciliation. It's looking at FY23 numbers and reconciling the numbers against the actuals. So, and the governor's office, didn't spend a half billion dollars. So it's not on Maura Healey. It's Charlie Baker's folks too, and a lot of that's going to be prior approach to continue or revert it back to the general fund. Just then help did the reconciliation. And, obviously the big chunk of change that's missing is capital gain. So then we had to readjust the stabilization funding budget. So the rainy day fund is not as robust as we want to, but it's still, in the $7 billion zone. So it's not like we're in deep, rainy day trouble when it rains again. But it won't be as, robust as we want it to be.
I know that was a concern of yours like a year ago. You mentioned that.
Yeah, especially during the end of COVID when we didn't know what it was going to do. And, they projected revenue shortfalls of close to 20%, reflecting the decline in the labor market. Then obviously you all saw in 2021, everything flipped on its head. Suddenly we went from like negative employment to overemployment. We had practically near employment statistically. Once you hit under 3%, it's statistically basically full employment, and we had more jobs than people available.
Yep.
And once stimulus money ended and unemployment benefit extension ended and all that stuff, the labor market really became saturated. And employers and employees had the advantage of wage negotiation, and revenues on the state level bumped up by a combination of capital gains. And of course, the more money people make, and we are a flat tax state, the more money the state gets out of it.
Right.
Trigger that 62F issue.
Yep.
We all talk about everyone got a little bit of a tax refund before Baker left office. But then again, that good times don't roll forever, and wages will not always go up forever. And it's now leveling out, and wage growth has moved well under 0.5% per month compared to last year. And inflation is stabilizing, even though it's still high because there's costs passed along. But I mean, don't expect your wages to be so high that's going to create unexpected tax revenue.
What about the millionaires tax, though, so-called millionaires tax? Is that included in the overall budget?
Yeah, it's not baked in the budget in the sense that it's like part of foundation, because the unpredictability of it in the first time of doing it, you just don't know.
Yeah.
So we budget out $1 billion between various transportation projects and school education related stuff, in the hopes that the money's available. But if it's not, we didn't bake it into the bottom line. That was one of those peculiar ones that we did have gambling too, actually.
Oh yeah.
We also did have cannabis. We didn't bake the tax revenue into the bottom line. We wanted to give it a couple of cycles to see how it put out. So, it was kind of like a wishy list kind of way to looking at it. It's like, if we have it, we wish we could do this kind of scenario.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Just send it to Santa Claus and see if he'll bring it to you for Christmas.
Yeah. Essentially, yes. I mean, we didn't bake in the casino money at all in the first cycle. It was like we just didn't know. So one of the, myths out there is that you put something out in the industry, you have this brand new revenue, and it's always available. Same thing with sports betting, right? It's doing very successfully, but again, it's subject to economic impact as well, and we just don't know enough about how the ebb and flow of that industry works yet. It's not like you get a steady same number of players every month that we get X number of dollars coming in. That there's not enough time, so we tend to be very cautious. That it's not like sales tax, right? We do have an idea of spikes in sales tax during Black Friday, Christmas, and we expect car excise tax to go up on car sales. When we come into the spring, we can track the RMV license plates to figure out what the projections on excise tax for local communities and past behavior on car sales. I said before, I say again, interest rates are high. People have been, people smarter than I am, economists and other people that do tax policy and watch these statistics, can project out that there'll be a negative impact on things like car sales, home sales, refinancing, lines of credit, capital, big project development, because interest rates will stay above 7, 8, 9%, depending on the scenario. For a while longer. And the Feds have made it very clear, the Fed Reserve Bank, that higher for longer. Very actually didn't, just not carefully, just flat out said, don't expect a rate cut.
Right. Yeah. That's probably early, middle of next year at the earliest.
Yeah, that's what a lot of these speculators and market people are thinking. But in terms of like the Fed Reserve itself, they just flat out said, don't expect it. They don't want to give any false impressions. And despite, the fact they make a statement, it's amazing how people don't believe things have been said. They still behave as if what they want to believe is a person that actually makes the actual decision says no, but people behave like, well, they don't mean that.
But they just said it.
Yeah,
And
it's
so
very
far, everything they've said, they've done.
Well, that is interesting part observed on human behavior regarding the Federal Reserve Bank is that they say something, and you look around analysts and business writers and all that. Oh, they don't mean that. They're going to do a cut in March or a cut in July or whatever they want to say. And it's almost like what part of the fact they follow through on everything they've said for a year and a half you don't understand.
Right. Because, but I don't want it to be that way, right?
Yeah, it is again, they're all analysts, they're very speculative, but
Yeah.
some people believe that speculation is true.
Well, I mean, they have to develop, a following in their given media, I suppose, in order to be valid.
I guess you're right. I just find a very peculiar observation.
I
That
know. Well,
they,
see, you and I deal in facts. That's the problem, Jackie. We're
well,
too fact-based.
if you actually say you're going to do it and you've been doing it and been doing it consistently, I would trust the honesty of your statements
Yeah,
because
I'm not betting man, but pretty good odds that they're going to continue that pattern, right? If they
Yeah.
hadn't, then I'd say yes, they're not going to.
Oh yeah, if they didn't follow through on past statements, then of course we'd be questioning about the validity of their statements. But they have been following through, so I have little uh, uh, questioning about their intention to continue or their honesty about the situation.
Right. And they have no reason to lie. It doesn't behoove them.
Oh, well, that's correct. The Federal Reserve Bank does not. The individuals don't practice in the stock market, and they
Right.
have very limited opportunities to make money outside of the current job. They basically
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah, and they're not elected either.
And they're not elected, and their only job is that, and they have a lot of restrictions on what they can do under federal ethics laws, and they receive no benefit or disbenefit from what the decisions are made in terms of that stuff. They really are neutral ground, despite what partisan politics thinks. They really are neutral ground, and they have a mandate. They have to have maximum job creation, and reduce inflation. That's basically their job.
Right. It's like working for the state lottery. If you do, you can't play it.
Can't play, yeah, you can't play it. Your job is to make sure the integrity of the system is honest, and that's part of the lottery's job. A big part of the job is to ensure the system's running smoothly and there's no shenanigans, associated with the system. So,
Right.
I mean, the Fed Reserve is a creation that's not new, but the current Federal Reserve structure is a reflection of the Great Depression, and again, there was more reforms after World War II ended to try to address potential future situations where politics is not a good idea on good monetary policy. And you've seen them mess around, like in Turkey is one of the best example where they were having inflation rates 12% and climbing, as opposed to tightening and raising interest rates. Erdogan forced their Turkish federal bank to reduce rates and stimulate the economy more. And it's like, that 20% inflation, it just wouldn't stop. One of the things about inflation is once the train's left the barn, you got to pull back fast on the brake hard. Otherwise, it just keep running away.
Right. Yeah, we started in the 80s. Yeah.
Yeah, people don't sit around and think about, when they're making business decisions about inflation. They're just running their business. And unfortunately, high interest rates hurts businesses and hurts consumers. But you and I don't sit there and say, "Oh, well, I should spend less because it's going to affect inflation at a big level." No, we don't think that way. Unfortunately, depending on how you want to frame it, Federal Reserve banks around the country's job is very similar to the U.S. one, trying to independently without political influence make a decision regarding long-term health of the economy.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, see, we're talking about gambling. I'm sure you're aware. Your colleague in the Senate, John Keenan, is calling for a study as to how the state's spending the revenues that it collects from gambling, from sports betting, to treat problem gambling.
Yeah, actually, I have a parallel issue as well in that when working in the Department of Public Health regarding better data collection sent to DPH, as well as addressing this hotline problem where people think the hotline for gambling addiction assistance is actually the helpline,
Hmm.
which causes problem for DPH. And um, obviously DPH is independent from the gaming industry
Yep.
regarding any studies they do. I love the guys at the Mass Commission for Compulsive Gambling, but one of their partners is the gambling industry.
Hmm.
Need the partnership, otherwise they're unable to get their materials and other assistance programs to be physically inside the casinos. And of course, they receive some monetary assistance as well. So, DPH is, obviously not a industry that's tied, not an agency that's tied directly to it. It's Mass Gaming Commission that regulates them. And, they're looking for more data sets regarding aggregate consumer data to get an idea what the patterns are like regarding gambling
Hmm.
and whether or not the addiction rates are tied to it and other studies on other types of addictions tied to gambling. As people at Mass Compulsive Gaming has reminded me over the years, gambling is rarely a single addiction. It's generally a pairing. So someone with a gambling problem is very likely to have another type of addiction goes with it. Generally smoking or alcohol or other forms of substance abuse is not uncommon. So it's that's kind of what I've been doing on my end.
Hmm.
Where John is looking to see, the efficiency of the money being spent. He's very concerned about false advertising or misleading advertising about how the commercials are done. We've expressed those same concerns at the Mass Gaming Commission. I've been working on that as well. My staff on the parallel track is also chair of the committee that I'm on. I have some issues that can come before me regarding how people do solicitations.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I know that sports betting is taking off. I mean, I think I read somewhere where the folks from the apps, the sports gaming apps have sold shares worth like $60 million already.
Yeah, I mean, this was a long-term gamble. People invested stock in places like DraftKings and FanDuel and even the casinos. Um, you boom or bust in the stock market. You take your risk at your own hands. The real two states for sports betting that they're waiting for, and I'm watching this too, is California and Texas.
Hmm.
I mean, it's the two biggest population centers in the country.
Mhm.
And if both of them open up sports betting, you can guarantee that the casinos, FanDuel, and obviously DraftKings is clearly the leader, will be able to just monetize rapidly, and the stock should go bonky high really fast. But it's also these guys have been doing grow at all cost,
Yep.
meaning that they were willing to take a negative revenue on their earnings to try to get ahead of the other competitors. As we've talked earlier, there's massive complaints we received regarding the sheer amount of advertising after sports betting was legalized was literally grow at all costs. They would throw infinite money they have at them as much money it can be loaned on lines of credit, not caring about profitability yet to try to maximize customer signups.
Right. I think they call it a loss leader in marketing terms, if you will. So, a small loss at the beginning to capitalize in the future.
Yeah, they started turning a profit in Q3 this year, and I expect that they'll probably continue. But again, if another open market is up like in Texas or California, people are going to buy it on speculation, the stock, because they think it's going to go high, and it probably will. But they're also going to do the loss, take the losses because advertising in California, Texas is so much bigger in terms of sheer dollars they have to spend. They'll take negative earnings for a while. They try to capture a market base. And we talked about it also inertia, right? People, when they sign on to one platform, unless they want to be a mobile platforms or ones, are not inclined to change.
Right. Yeah. No, it's customer loyalty is huge. Right. Exactly. Yep.
Yeah, you got to get in first in that industry. And, again, people have inertia. They're not trying to shop for the best gambling website once they're on one.
That's right. That's right. As long as they can get their bets in, it's exactly right. Yeah.
Absolutely correct. So that's why it's, taking those losses is a gamble, a huge gamble for the company. But that's the logic.
Yeah. Is the regulation to prevent minors from using those working? Have you heard, Jackie?
It's hard to tell. I mean, there's some degree of auditing in the industry itself, and then you have to check the IP numbers, and you can't VPN voice protocol network your way out of Massachusetts or into Massachusetts using these devices. And then there's also verification regarding IDs, and how does that work? And
Yeah.
no foolproof way to prevent minors from playing. I mean, let's be honest about this, right? I mean, there's no foolproof way to stop anybody. But
Right. It's like buying alcohol for a minor,
correct. It's really about auditing the regulatory agency doing proper audits in this
Mhm.
case, anything else to find out if they're in compliance or not. And that's a question we're going to have for them down the road. It's very early. I mean, sports betting has not really been a full year of
Mhm.
implementation yet. And I think that's something to talk about the Gaming Commission probably in another year or so, once they decide how they're going to do their auditing.
Okay. Can we talk a little bit about, I heard a report earlier this week about a ballot initiative that has enough signatures now to raise the minimum wage for tipped workers, $6.75 an hour to the minimum here in Massachusetts, which is $15 an hour.
Yeah, tip workers get a smaller minimum wage because it's a tip-based industry. And if they're unable to make the tips equivalent to the minimum wage per hour, the restaurant pays the minimum wage.
Supposed to.
Supposed to. In most cases, in a good economy, especially now where you have hyperinflation and it's slowing down, obviously, if you're even tipping at 15%, the odds are pretty good you're gonna make minimum wage.
Because things are expensive, right? Yeah.
Yeah, the more expensive it is, and I know some folks are probably pulling back, but it's hard work. Anybody's working in the restaurant industry it's hard work
Oh,
to
yeah.
do service. So and they're very dependent on those tip wages because they don't minimum wage is significantly lower than the tips, to be honest with you. But particularly now, I mean holiday season, people
Yes.
tend to try to be a little more generous. So it makes the ballot question actually forces restaurants to move straight to minimum wage numbers.
Right. And the question brings up the question is would that be the end of tips at restaurants?
I have a lot of mixed feeling to tipping. We've talked about this before. The vast majority of the planet does not do tipping. They don't. The cost of labor is built into the price structure of your meal. It's like rent, electricity, food, everything, and not just partial labor. So the minimum wages tip is low, and that's what they get as a baseline. But if they don't get enough tips, obviously the employer has to pay the minimum wage.
Right.
But I mean, most of the planet, compresses all their things, including taxes. You look at other parts of the country, I mean, not country, parts of the world. They don't do a separate tax. The price you see is the total price. That's it. Everything's packaged in.
Yep. It's like a cruise, basically.
Yeah, most of the world does that. We don't. We itemize these things for transparency, but also become somewhat of a, I won't say deceptive, but shock for foreigners when they come here and they realize that the price on the item in the menu is not the actual final price.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why you see like odd marketing, like $14.99, making it seem like it's not that expensive, but all of us round up anyway, which I find really odd psychology. Because all of us round up.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But for some reason, if you're, you go to buy a car and it's, $49,999, you're thinking, oh, it's not 50,000.
Yeah, it's a weird psychological thing that marketing has continued to keep up, even though the rest of us don't always round up the penny anyway, the dollar anyway. We never think of it as a bargain.
Right.
I find that a peculiar behavior, but it's ingrained in business culture. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of part of the quirkiness of it all. And I don't mind tipping, but if I had a choice between that and people getting a daily wage guaranteed, I'd rather have people getting a daily wage guaranteed.
Right. Because the tip, it depends too if the restaurant pools their tips, or they just
That's
equally.
You can't pool tips. You're not supposed to.
You're not supposed to, right? I know.
And you're not supposed to take cut of the action of tips, and you can't have head waiters take a cut. Actually, that's illegal.
Right.
Fair wage law. So, but it eliminates that kind of shenanigans.
Right.
by giving them a fair wage. But some folks don't like that in the service industry, because if you're in a nice restaurant, a very expensive restaurant, and someone, a family puts down, $800, for example, for a celebration, a big party, and yeah, you mean people could put a service charge of 15%, as the tip. But frankly, I mean, you rather get 20%, which is now the customary, or up to 25% of people feeling generous against an $800 bill. That's much better than minimum wage.
No, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Although, like you point out, they work. It's hard work for sure. Yeah.
It is hard work. And same thing with bartenders. It's hard work too. I mean,
Mhm.
you're on your feet for a very long time, trying to keep up with orders, keep it straight, and you get some customers to get impatient. Well, people,
Mhm. Yep, they
yeah,
work odd hours, holidays, weekends. So it's certainly they earn it for sure. Most of them do. Yeah.
yeah. And as a kid that grew up in a restaurant for 3 years, I get it. I've seen it. And how to work around my parents' hours
Mm.
uh, at the work. My mom actually stayed at the hospital and came to work the restaurant, and work around that schedule. It's not easy. So we'll see how this goes. Generally when it comes to increasing people's wages, minimum wage, the voters always vote yes.
Right.
But there's actual ramifications with service workers, that serve your food, about whether this really is a positive thing for them or not. It's not as cut as dry.
Mhm.
It is, and again, there's a economic scale differential between a busy Sunday diner versus a less busy Thursday diner versus being at Morton's, versus being at 99. I mean, it's all different.
Yeah, I think we're already starting to see a little pushback from the restaurant industry. So we'll have to see.
We'll see, but like I said, it's a little complicated, because if you actually have worked or working in this industry as a server, you may have very different experiences depending where you were and are, and then depending on how much you make in tips, this may not help you.
Yep. To look at the fine print. This is a fine print type of thing.
Yeah, it's really a May situation. So I mean, I think it's going to be very difficult for the media to get a wide swath of people in this industry to give a proper sampling about different types of servers and working in different sectors in different geographic locations, to give you a really broad and fully informed view about how this actually impacts them the most.
Yes, yeah. Okay, stay tuned for that. So the informal session now continues.
Yeah, inform sessions are generally Monday and Thursdays in both
Oh.
branches. It's not guaranteed, but generally the practice. If there's a holiday, it'll be a Tuesday, because Christmas is a Monday, New Year's is a Monday. And under the rules, I mean, actually under the law, state law says we have to be in every 72 hours, but you adjust regarding holidays and states of emergency. And again, because the Senate can do remote, they have less of a difficulty. As you can tell, needling about this remote issue. I've been doing this all year. But also the session for this calendar legislative year ends on the first Wednesday of after the first Monday of the year. So it'll be January. I can look at my calendar. January 3rd will be the close of the 2023 part of the legislative calendar. All our bills, it will carry over.
Mhm.
Certain things will not carry over, things like the vetoes in the budget, and any other fiscal matters that are pending. Kind of will be lingering. Econ debt bill has been filed. That's going to go to committee of economic development, emergency attack. It's actually the committee next to my committee. So that stuff's already underway, and you already started seeing the economic forecast articles coming out from Monday's joint ways and means hearings regarding revenue projections, and various articles will be coming out more this month, probably more in kind of the specialized business magazines and similar groups, trying to forecast out what 2024 look like, and of course our ability to have revenues directly tied to the public's ability to make money.
Right. See what that translates down to, obviously, for Quincy, for your district, right?
Yeah, I mean, local aid is directly tied to tax dollars, and then as well as Chapter 70 local aid, as well as things for like Council of Aging, library, school breakfast programs, school lunch programs. They're not part of Chapter 70, that part of it in terms of school stuff. Any school safety grants. A lot. You'd be surprised exactly how much. I really should give you a tally of some of the smaller items that we get. I mean, the Quincy College got a. I know Quincy College is semi-owned by the city of Quincy. I know it's complex. I know Quincy College, got a decent sized grant, biotech, and to do more of a Rotech, associate degree targeted towards the biotech industry. So
$750,000 actually. Yeah.
Big piece of chunk change. So unfortunately, whether we realize it or not, people tend to forget the state delegation, with John and Bruce and Speaker Ron, contribute a lot of money through our votes, through earmarks, through advocacy, with state government to get funding out of Quincy. The various not-for-profit agencies as well as city government does ask us to sign support letters for grant funding requests, whether it be the CAP agency or Quincy Resources or the Y, any local agency. Plus, obviously, the city of Quincy itself asks us for money, plus anything we can get in earmarks and bonds.
Mm-hmm.
So it does end up to being the tens of millions of dollars once you compile all the little pieces together. I think it was like $25,000 for a traffic study plan for Norfolk Downs. Up in North Quincy, again, we're not talking about $50 million, but I mean this stuff gets up quick.
Right, and there's the quality of life issues that we're talking about. These are really the nuts and bolts of living in a community.
Yeah, and there's also we're good sized city for Massachusetts, and that gives up certain advantages. I mean, Chapter 90 road money. The city of Quincy doesn't put that on their bonds. There's no matching component for that. That's just basically free money for roads and bridges, but it's on the state fund tab for the city, and that's almost $2 million on average per every 2 years, so $1 million a year. And the city can do what it wants with it. I mean, I don't tell them what to do with the money. Some people have a mistaken belief that the state provides money, that I can dictate where it goes. I really don't. We just provide the resources. In the case of targeted grants, obviously, it has to be used for certain purposes for targeted
right,
grants.
like C Street, for instance.
Yeah, which is $10 million in state cobbled together money that me and John Keane have been working on for a long time. No city money is going on to C Street in terms of construction. The city would maintain C Street once the construction is over. I will be getting angry calls sometime probably in April. Once construction starts, I fully anticipate angry people calling me at that stage.
Yep. Yeah, it's going to be very disruptive, but it's necessary and will be beneficial once it's done.
Yeah, the traffic pattern will be much better. We have the newest tech in terms of traffic pattern and traffic camera and lighting and all that stuff, and hopefully reduce the potential accidents, particularly down at the Palmer Street, C Street intersection area.
Yes, better for pedestrians too. It's similar to what they installed in the downtown. And actually, I just took a walk earlier this morning through downtown Quincy, and it's very pedestrian friendly now, much more than it ever has been.
Yeah, we don't have to try to cross a crazy rotary.
Correct. It's like I don't need my running shoes on to make it safely to the other side of the street.
Yeah, so for those of you that are like maybe 15 years old or maybe 10 to 15 years old, probably don't remember the rotary as well as some of us older folks in terms of the mad dash.
Yeah, that's right. But and if you were carrying bundles, it made it even more challenging.
I've done that a few times. I've experienced that too, and also trying to drive around the road, in particularly snowstorms.
Oh yeah, that's always a challenge too. Yeah.
Yeah, trying to get out in a busy Quincy Center in a slick street. So, as much as I also had a lot of question marks about how this new configuration will work out, it actually worked out wonderfully in the end.
Yeah, no, it definitely did. We are in the holiday season, of course. Have you gone to the new skating rink yet, Quincy?
I have not. It was quite busy. I did the drive-by there on Saturday when I was trying to get my errands done. We did drive by there last night. My brother's birthday was in late November, and we didn't get a chance to go to dinner till last night. And it's wonderful. These are great amenities for the city. Great job by the mayor and the council and city hall folks to make this happen. And hopefully this will be a continued tradition in terms of family friendly fun that's free in this case, or I like to put it affordable, in a working city.
Yeah, no, it's neat for sure. I never thought I'd see the day when there was a skating rink in Quincy Center. That's for sure. I've worked in Quincy almost 40 years.
Well, oddly enough, I do know how to skate. I've been on skates for a long time.
Oh,
It seems like a rite of passage in Quincy to at least be able to stand on ice with blades. You don't have to be a hockey player. You just have to be able to demonstrate mobility.
yeah. Get down there, Sailor's Home Pond, Tech. I want to see you.
Up on Rice Road, for those who live in Wallaston, aware that if it gets to a cold enough temperatures long enough, well, that's why you do the ice mornings all the time. We'll do this again as we get into the winter. But don't go on ice if you don't have at least 20, 30 to actually really 25-degree weather for at least 7 consecutive days.
Yes. Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just going to go through the ice. But yeah, I mean, I'm old enough. I mean, kids be out there with shovels, and they would set up temporary hockey apparatus, nets and whatnot, and people will play on a little bit of a rigid ice, and
Yep.
that's not uncommon. It's a still pond, so it's kind of one of those weird kind of just static ponds, very small. But again, we generally don't encourage people to go on that ice. We don't. Just saying, if we really need 7 days of 25-degree weather.
Yeah, it's been quite a while actually since we've had super duper cold winter long enough to make it safe.
Yes, we haven't actually. Yeah, and you don't want a lot of snow because you have jaggedy ice,
Right.
and it destroys your blades. But also, you're gonna take a header, if it isn't quite the right smoothness. But I'm sure there's other families out there going to have, we'll have the outdoor rinks up. This is a hockey city.
Oh yeah.
That's my joke is that half the city can skate. That's always been my joke.
That's
I think
true.
it's true or not.
Yeah, it was as you say, a rite of passage. So when I was growing up, it was the era of the big bad Boston Bruins. They were known far and wide.
Yeah, I'm more of a basketball. I mean, '80s Celtics guy, which as I yesterday was complaining to friends about basketball that you breathe on someone, there's a foul. I grew up in the era of the fact that if you tap people, that's okay, but you clothesline people, maybe not.
Yeah.
If you're old enough, you know exactly what reference I'm making on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't get away with much these days, that's for sure.
It looks like an Olympic court. Olympic rules are different from NBA rules, but the court looks more Olympic-ish. And they find that perplexing. And they hardly call it a 3-second rule inside the rectangle.
Mhm.
Got to camp out there. Unless you're really in there for like 10 seconds, they'll kick you out. But nowadays, if you're in there too long, and I don't like zone defense in professional sports because I think professional basketball, not all sports, but I mean basketball. I mean, you're getting paid a lot of money. You can't play the man and man and keep up. I just don't know what to say. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of zone in professional basketball. It's also too easy to crack zone too, because if you got two superstars, they'll crack a zone in half a minute. I mean, real fast and just crack your zone. And that's why you need to know how to play man to man. You got to learn how to run.
Yep. Yep. So are we going to see you out in the district anytime soon, Techie?
Well, let's see here. This weekend, the Organization of Chinese Americans has a youth project down at the Cathay Pacific on Drop and Say Hello. The House Neck is doing a lobster pot trap tree lighting, which is actually very awesome. If you have a chance to see it at the fire station down by the VFW and House Neck. I know the general's tree lighting already happened, so if you're driving by, you can see the great job the city's done on that back of the old Ross parking lot, so to speak.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
It's very beautiful. They're doing I'm not going to make it because I got to take my mom to a doctor's appointment, but this Thursday's Pearl Harbor Day. There'll be a celebration. It was a Salem, so people want to do a drive-by there and recognize the sacrifice and horrors of Pearl Harbor Day. Braintree and Lindsay's apparently doing a joint thing. And what else is there? Otherwise, again, Quincy quiets down pretty quickly as we get closer and closer to Christmas.
Right. Yeah, there's a menorah lighting on Hancock Adams Common Thursday evening. There's the creche gathering. I think it's on Sunday. So there's a few things still to go.
Yeah, and something that's actually kind of interesting is I don't get these notices as much. I'm not getting notices all certain things. I always get notices of everybody's stuff at the office. The holiday craft fair / indoor yard sales has not been as popular post COVID.
True. Yeah. Although O'Brien Towers is doing a big one this Saturday, so check that out.
Yeah, if you can get in,
Yeah.
you gotta be careful now. I've talked to the office, and my mom and with dinner last night was talking about the Vaughan people that we know that got COVID
Oh, okay.
the last week or so. It's moving through families. Obviously, I keep repeating, please be careful and take care of yourself. If you don't want to get vaccinated, fine, but you know, take precautions that are smart this season. Of course, RSV is running around as well
Mhm.
as cold and the flu.
Mhm.
So you got a lot of stuff that's airborne that's really available, and only you can prevent yourself from getting sick in many ways by taking precautions and choosing where you want to be in crowds, as well as masking up, especially on airplanes.
Mm.
You're going to be flying, be aware you're kind of in a tube of a whole bunch of people crammed together longer than you're sitting on a slow red line train. You know, I joke,
Very true. Yeah.
but
And you
yeah,
can't open the window.
open a window. You got to rely on that little vent thing above you to disperse the air around you. So,
Right.
you know, um, again, I mean, I can't tell you what to do. I just encourage people to just take the relative precautions, because it's not just about you, but also vulnerable populations in your family, whether it be
Mhm.
kids, or you have immune problems, or senior citizens. I mean, I don't have the latest stats on hospitalizations, but it's obviously not going to be as horrible as the last 2 years or 3 years. But I mean, there will be a spike. You will see a spike. I just don't have that data in front of me.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, let's give out your contact information if we could.
Sure. 617-722 2370, 617-722-2370. We've moved to the holiday-ish type schedule, but we are staffed every day. As my own staff's trying to figure out their own holiday schedule. tackey.chan@mahouse.gov, tackey.chan@mahouse.gov. I do see your emails. Obviously, we do constituent emails first. People have day-to-day problems, but I do look at them all. Then you have the state website, malegislature.gov, malegislature.gov. You can look at bills on your own in the bill histories, as well as look at past public hearings and past formal sessions and informal sessions on the website if you're inclined to do that. You don't actually have to call me. A lot of stuff's available on the web. We also have Tacky Chan on X, such as that is, as well as State Representative Tacky Chan on Facebook. And of course, you have TackyChan.org as a reference page. We'll probably be doing some updates soon. I keep saying that every time because there's always something else to update. And, as we close the day off, I want to wish you a belated happy birthday. The little bird told me that you had decided to try lay low on your birthday. So, for those who enjoyed Joe's show, definitely drop him a happy birthday line.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I stopped having them a long time ago, though.
I am in the same boat you're in, but
I think my boat's sinking a little faster than yours.
well, I mean, it's always good to be appreciated. So, thank you, Joe, for everything, and obviously wish you a belated happy birthday.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Tacky. We'll check in next week.
We'll see you next week.